Hi, everyone, and welcome to AB Conversations, where we will help you CFP your way out of it. A podcast where you get into the minds of a couple certified financial planners on how we think and feel about everyday financial planning questions and what should really matter most to you. A healthier financial life starts now. Hey, Adam. What's up, my friend? How are we doing?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Awesome. I feel like $1 million. So, introducing the podcast today by title, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I'll let you maybe tell a little bit of the story, but we saw a stat not too long ago that really made us think about putting this podcast out there. And some people might be drawn to it as we kind of were thinking about, growing up as kids. There was a very famous show Regis Philbin that would lead called Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Lo and behold, we had to look this up. 1998, that first aired.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
concept of $1 million, we're going to have to go back 30 years to provide some context here in our financial planning world of $1 million used to sound like a lot of money. Is it?
Yeah.
Is that what you need? Is that a target? Well, let's maybe go through some of it today.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we both, when we were thinking about the show, thought it was kind of late 90s, early 2000s, and it was September of 1998, apparently, the first episode aired in the US version. You look back, and to your point, $1 million at that point was maybe one of the biggest kind of game show prizes. Like that
Oh
was
my gosh, yes.
a big deal.
Right.
But now here we are 27 years later, which is just kind of crazy to think about. And you just look at the average inflation impact over the last 27 years, it's roughly 2.5%. So that $1 million back in 1998 is basically worth 506,000 today.
Right.
So basically cut in half over a 27-year period. Or maybe the opposite way of looking at it is, what would the total prize need to be today to feel like it was $1 million back in 1998? And you're basically at 2 million. It's like 1.97 million. Have it feel the same financial impact. I think it just goes to illustrate the power or the negative impact that inflation can have on savings and dollars over longer stretches of time.
Yeah, I know we're going to talk about the psychology a little bit, but I think you also looked this up. The concept of I feel like $1 million, that originated like early 1900s. So if we're playing this kind of inflation game, to have said that back then was more like the equivalent of $7 or $8 million today. So,
Yeah.
twofold here. We're going to talk a little bit about inflation. Certainly the compounding of numbers matters, the psychology matters. But the stat, what really kind of drove us to start this today was millionaires just aren't unicorns anymore, right? The
Yeah.
recent study shows the data is that 1 in 10 Americans has a net worth of $1 million, right? And that's a 15-fold increase over these last, what'd you say, 27, 30 years since that show came
Yeah.
out. So let's just talk about it. What happened? Like, why is just this concept of $1 million probably not enough anymore?
Yeah. I mean, it's all the standard things, the same. And you could basically probably look at any 30-year time period and see that impact from many of these same factors. It is inflation, right? Just in general,
Right.
everything just costs more in the future. Asset growth, right? The investment world maybe expanding.
Sure.
401k participation versus that old school idea of, well, I'm not necessarily setting aside these dollars. I have a pension through work. The company is doing that savings for me. So that transitioning more to the individual drives that higher. And just you think of the housing market right now,
Oh
home
my gosh,
values
yes.
have
Yeah.
increased exponentially over time. And usually I think the idea has always been that, home values kind of keep pace with inflation, but there certainly has been pockets of time where that has not been the case, where home values have exceeded the rate of inflation. So you put all those things together and you can very quickly see how smaller dollars in the
Yeah.
past become very big dollars, in today's world.
Yeah, and I know we've said this in different places, but we'll keep saying it so that people hear it. If you have, like, let's take the house out of it, let's take cars, possessions out of it. Let's just say you have $1 million saved, not just $1 million net worth, but $1 million that can generate some sort of income for you. So you're 65, you're retired, you have $1 million. How much will that realistically provide for you? Well, using that 4 or 5% withdrawal rule, we're talking 40, $50,000 a year before taxes. That's not lavish. We know that's not
Hmm.
poverty. Like, let's not sneeze at that. But you're certainly
Yeah.
not, flying first class around the world and taking lavish vacations all the time on 40 grand a year, right? If there's
Right.
some Social Security pension with it, fine. You may be fine. We're not saying that you saved $1 million and it's not enough,
Yeah.
but let's really be putting that in context. That idea of I need $1 million and I'm going to be financially independent, that may not be the case depending on your life
Yeah.
needs.
Yeah, and I think that's where, at least the one of the first things that popped into my head when we were kind of prepping for this, that idea of the pension having so much weight for people that let's go back 25 years, retirees or people who are freshly retiring probably had a pension, may have also been on the, the 401k or the 403b side, right? They were saving in addition to having a pension. Home
Right.
values were increasing. Saving $1 million on top of having maybe a couple social security payments in the household, a pension or two, that $1 million really, that was the buffer, right? That extra 40,000 probably felt like excess back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
Now with the proliferation of the employer or the employee side of saving for retirement, getting away from those pensions, that $1 million just, it's not the buffer that maybe it once was, which again just puts more of the pressure on the individual to do the hard work of saving and investing over time.
Or let's play the game show here. So Adam's really good at Jeopardy. Adam knows a lot of things. He goes on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and wins. He phones a friend Ben who bails him out at the last second. You win $1 million. Do you at 40 years old just stop working? Right? Is $1 million truly financial independence for a guy with a home but still got a mortgage? You've got
Hmm.
kids. Like, it's probably not that psychological independence that it
Yeah.
might have felt like that might have been 30 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. When you pose that question, I'm thinking, you win $1 million, is that enough to retire? Yeah, if you were a few months away from retirement or,
Yeah,
maybe a couple years
true.
from
Yeah, fair.
retirement, maybe it is the depressing side of just thinking about these really large dollars and just the impact that inflation just does have over time. It really takes these really big numbers that still sound big if you're from a certain generation. It just erodes that. We were just having a conversation the other day, and we'll age ourselves here. I always had in my head, when I got out of high school into college, like a car payment. Car
Oh, yeah.
payment was like 250 or $300. And now you say that to a kid today, they'll just stare at you like, you're insane, old man. You can't buy a car for a $250 a month car payment. It doesn't exist. But it did at one point. Well, that is not today. So I think that's kind of the parallel here too, is what used to be from a dollar standpoint, just time just moves and marches on, and everything kind of rises along with that.
So let's define why this is. And we see
Mm,
this other places in like behavioral finance psychology. It is a bias. It's called anchoring, right? We latch on to a number, a story, some sort of frame of reference that we have. And even if the world changes, we can't move off that anchor. Right?
yeah.
So the psychology of chasing $1 million, why does that feel so important and strong and like that has to be true? It's because that's what we thought, and that's the way it was 30 years ago, but we haven't moved on from it. But, I mean, maybe I can flip it back to you. When we say we're chasing $1 million, what we're really chasing is not the $1 million.
Right. Yeah. What's what it represents, right? It's the financial independence that at one time, $1 million probably did afford you maybe some of that independence. It's the security of having that as kind of your backstop.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is, it really just comes back to what am I actually looking to accomplish or what am I looking to achieve? And does that $1 million afford me the flexibility and the freedom to do what I want and when I want to do it? And
Yeah.
that's certainly I think where the impact has shifted.
Right. This is the basis of the work that we do. We need to align money to what matters to you. And yes, we need to find a way to have numbers aligned to it. but we really do want to prevent people from chasing some generic headline or keeping up with the Joneses or, having these lifestyle creeps that can happen when you're making money and making good money. It is to
Yeah.
figure out what your number is and then figure out how we use the good forces of compounding returns
Yeah.
to kind of
Yeah.
offset what we're really highlighting today is the negative drag of inflation.
And the reality of it too, we've certainly had people sit in our office and tell us, this is my goal. Once I hit $1 million or whatever that number is, a million point, 1.5 million, two, whatever that number is to people, that's my target. And when I hit, that's my freedom. I'm going to be able to retire. But I think the reality is because inflation never stops, it's a moving target, right? So once somebody gets to retirement, even say they hit their goal of whatever that dollar amount is, we know that inflation will continue to march on and impact that purchasing power. That target is going to shift
Yeah.
and move over time and become potentially harder and harder to achieve with inflation increasing over time. So it's not even that you could just, and it's more critical, I think, for the younger individuals to not just anchor to a number. So, someone in our age range, right, in your 40s, that maybe you're looking for retirement in 20 years, it's kind of a fool's errand to just pick a number and say, this is what I'm going to shoot for, because there's such a long runway. So many things are going to happen and kind of meander this path along the way that, yeah, just, I think this is where just building the right habits, doing the right things will put you on that path and hopefully get you to where you want to be and be able to course correct along the way.
Yeah, and we could be really honest here too and say, while we're speaking maybe to certain people to say, don't anchor on a number that might not be too realistic, like it's going to be shooting too low.
Yeah.
Maybe we should tease like a future podcast. Like we've
Yeah.
definitely sat in front of people that they've got a very different view on, I can't give money away until I hit $10 million, or I'm
Hmm.
not going to be able to do what I want to do and retire until I hit $5 million. And we say, well, how did we come up with that number? Right? Why do certain people that we would say are wealthy, why do certain rich people, quote unquote, feel poor? Like maybe that should be a podcast. But
Yeah.
it's coming back to that same idea. Our job as planners is to figure out what is enough for you. And then we have to do the math on how do we balance the good forces of compounding dollars with the purchasing power of the dollar eroding over time.
And that's it. The idea of, yeah, those are opposing forces, right? Saving and then having that compounding growth in your investments over time, hopefully counteracting, or even better, you're earning even more than that rate of inflation. So you're actually feeling your purchasing power increase over periods of time. So yeah, that should certainly be part of the process, right? And we've talked about this before, and I think there's been so many examples. People get it, but the earlier you start, the more powerful that becomes. It's hard, especially
Yeah.
because of inflation, right?
Yeah.
Think if you're a younger professional starting out now and you're looking to buy a house, it feels incredibly daunting that it's just never going to happen. But it's the reality. Getting started earlier has a huge impact, and we certainly see it with some of our younger clients that have put themselves in a really good spot. It buys them so much flexibility at some point later in life to be able to make decisions from a position of strength rather than feeling like you're kind of backed into a corner
Yeah.
and you're kind of you remove some of those options in the future. But just aligning what you need instead of just picking a random number kind of out of
Right.
thin air to say, well, but this is a big number, so that'll be good.
Yeah. If you're closer to retirement and the question is $1 million enough, we'll go back to the big question.
Yeah.
It depends, but I'm going to err on the side of probably thinking it's not, right? Because if you've been, in whatever field, if you've been working long enough, you're probably making more than the $40,000 that
Hmm.
$1 million will afford you. So we believe that financial planning needs to exist, right? And that's why we say we want to do planning before we even talk about investing, but let's create a scenario here where we can think about what is this money for? What do you really need? And then let's just do the math together because security is the goal here, right? Clarity is the real goal. It's not a generic number.
Yeah. And I know we've said this before too. You think back, and it was probably around the time that Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was on the air, the ING commercials where, people were walking around with the number
Yeah.
floating above their head. We could probably go on YouTube and find a clip from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire with that commercial playing. But that's the idea, right? We need to, our job is to try to help people figure out what should that number be, or at least a ballpark idea of what someone's, for their specific situation, what should that target be? Again, just rather than picking a number out of thin air or basing it off of the historical, well, my
Yeah.
parents did X, Y, Z. This is what they needed. So if I do that, I'm going to be fine. Just time changes those conversations.
No doubt about it. To finish up the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, I'm not even going to give you multiple choice.
Oh, gee.
Guinness Book of World Records. Who has spent the most time on television in their lifetime?
Oh, well, you're teeing this up. It has to be Regis.
Of course it is. It wasn't just Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It was Regis and Kelly. It was, yeah. Well done, though. Well done.
R.I.P. Regis.
Yeah. Thank you. Good chat. $1 million. I mean, I don't play the lottery.
Sounds great.
It'd be nice. Yeah, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to steal it.
It can't hurt.
It can't hurt. All right. Until next time.
See you then.
Bye. Hey everyone, Adam and I really appreciate you tuning in. Please note that the opinions we voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be most appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, your accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to making any decisions or investing. Thanks for listening.